What's going on, everybody? This is Al from PlaybookGamer.com. And first of all, I want to say thank you for purchasing this video course. I've been wanting to create courses for years, and I could just never wrap my head around that type of project. Well, now I have. I got a good organization of how I want to go about doing this, and I'm just super excited to see what this course can do for you. And what this course is going to cover is the West Coast offense for NCAA Football '06, more specifically from the USC playbook. It's just got a good combination of formations that you can create a good West Coast offense from that. And before we get into the nitty gritty of the offense, I want to talk about the folder that contains all of these files that you see right here. In the description box below each video of the playlist, you will see a link to this folder, and it is the USC West Coast Offense folder. And I want to briefly talk about each one of these files before we head into the actual offense. The first thing I want to talk about is the USC West Coast Offense call sheet. You click on that, and this is what we're going to cover in this course. This is my very simplified call sheet that I can go into any game and I can have by my side and look at it for reference. And we're going to start over here on the very left. Notice where it says pass plays and run concepts. I have a total of 20 of them. 20 is my golden number. I do not go over that. Yes, I can go into a playbook. For example, every one of these team playbooks in '06 has like 200 plays in them. But not one single gamer out there is going to go into a game and call 200 different plays. That's just goofy. You need to simplify it, and this is my way of doing it. I never go over 20 pass plays and run concepts. Now, specifically, let's talk about run concepts. Notice it does not say run plays. You notice that here I have 4 run concepts. I got dive, slam, draw, and option toss. Every single dive in this game works the same. Yes, the formations are different, but you're still attacking the same area the same way. Same with slam, same with draw, and the same with option toss. Okay, so there is no point in me listing every single dive play in our offense, but we will cover that in this video. The remainder of the slots that I have left, for example, in this one, there are only 4 run concepts that I need for this offense. This gives me 16 spots left for pass plays, specific pass plays. Now, you notice I have 16 of them right here. A lot of them are in blue and red, and there is one in black. What that means is I got a little legend over here, a little key. It says hash. These are the hash marks. So anything you see in blue, that is a play that works best on the left hash, as long as you don't flip the play. There's nothing wrong with flipping plays. I actually encourage you to do so once you really get familiar with the offense. But by default, anything you see in blue is a left hash play. Anything you see in red is a right hash play. And anything you see in black, that can work off either hash. Notice I have it said as both. That's why I have the run concepts in black, because you can run those anywhere on the field. And the majority of this video is going to cover these 20 pass plays and run concepts. Okay, and that's the beauty of this 20. This does not complicate your offense. Switch this up however you want, but don't add more to this. So if there are 2 pass plays you don't like, take them out and replace them with 2 other ones. Put in another run concept, but do not go over the 20. There's no point in it. I don't care how complicated you think your offense is. You do not need any more than this going into one single game. Okay, now let's talk about the situational section of the call sheet. There are 2 columns to this. This first column has your 3rd and longs, your 3rd and shorts, and your red zones. And these, when it comes to situational, there's a reason why I ordered these plays in a certain way. The first 10 are your quote-unquote quick pass plays, or your West Coast pass plays. Anybody that thinks West Coast offense, they're automatically thinking just quick drop back and getting the ball out quick. That's what these 10 pass plays are for. The next 4 are your deep pass plays. These ones are meant to go at least 10 yards down the field. We got a couple play actions. West Coast offense, they used a little play action, but I didn't want to put too much of that into this offense, so we're going to just cover 2. Then we got our run concepts, but I bring this up, the order of it, because of the situational, starting off with that 3rd and long. Remember those 4 deep pass plays I mentioned? there they are. So when you're going to go into third and long situation, you can look over your call sheet and you kind of know which one you may want to pick. Same with third and short. Third and short, think 5 yards and in. I have a couple of my favorite quick, quote-unquote, West Coast pass plays. Then I got a handful of the run concepts over here. So anything you see in this column will come over from these 20 on that list. Now, I don't have anything in the red zone section because all of this can work in the red zone. Obviously, until you get like 10 and 5 yards in, you can't run the deep stuff. But 20 yards in, you can technically run any of this. So that's up to you, however you want to do that. Now, this second column with the situational section, this is where we're going to come across various situations and plays that are not part of the 20. And these are just suggestions. You can change this up however you wish. This file is yours. But when it comes to the goal line, I just have a couple of formations. One of the formations in our offense is the I-form twin tight end. That's just a 22 personnel, a big, bulky formation that's got basic runs and such. You can also use the goal line. There's plenty of decent plays in there that you can use. 2-pointers are kind of the same way as the goal line, so I kind of put in the same thing. But again, you could take those out and practice some of these plays. You may find something that works better there for you. Now, I have a go for 2 situation chart where, for example, and this is used by all the coaches across football, if ahead by 1, 4, 5, 12, or 19, you need to go for 2. If you're behind by so on and so forth, yes, go for 2. So that's a nice little chart to work off of whenever you come across those situations, especially late in game. Your specials, think of like trick plays and such. Again, these 3 plays are not a part of this list of 20. You may never use these, but these plays are part of the full playbook for USC. But again, these are just suggestions. And then end of game, think you got to get down the field quickly to score a touchdown. I got it like a deep pass play that can get you to the sidelines. Again, just a suggestion. If you need a run-out clock, slam is probably my favorite run concept from this offense. And, of course, our favorite formation, the victory formation, the concept of QB kneel. I wanted to throw that in there. This will be a link to the playlist. This will be the only link I'll provide that goes to the playlist. So make sure you bookmark the playlist and this folder as well. Now, below all this, I have audibles. You can technically have up to 5. I left it blank because this is very open-ended. There's a lot of offense where I don't even use many audibles. It's just not very needed for me. You may be very audible heavy. By all means, use this. You have up to 5. And don't forget, you got quick audibles too. Quick audibles are very simple. You hold down the R1 button, then you hit either square, X, or circle, and you got one on the fly, ready to go. So those are pretty handy. And the last section is just a note section. I didn't know what really else to put here. If you need to put in some thoughts, notes about your offense, what's going on in your current season, by all means, do that. So make good use of this call sheet. You can print it off. If you hit Control P, it's going to look pretty good on an 8.5 by 11. Now, here are my current settings. Go by current sheet, 8.5 by 11, landscape. Make sure you have fit to page. That way it all fits on one page, and so on and so forth. You can turn that to a PDF, all that good stuff. So reference this throughout this video when you're watching the game film, and so on and so forth. Okay? The next thing I want to talk about is the USC full playbook. Now, the offense that we're covering in this course is only going to cover about 50 plays. Their entire offense, which is all 10 of these formations, you got your base 9 and then your goal line, has around 200 plays. But again, we're only going to cover like a fourth of it because, again, there's no point in me trying to cover 200 plays when you'll never use those 200. Especially there's a bunch of plays that aren't either not very good or don't fit the scheme whatsoever. But the purpose of this file is to give you every single play that is technically in the playbook that you could swap in and out plays if needed. But we got ace normal, we got ace bunch, little bunch set, then you got ace slot. And we're going to cover these formations here in a little bit in more detail. Then you got ace wide trips, 18 plays in every single formation. Ace empty, it looks 5 wide, but technically by default you got a halfback in right there. I-form normal, very popular. I-form twin tight end, This is one of the bigger sets we talked about earlier. Then you got strong twins. Then you got pro normal. And of course, I wanted to add the goal line because that is technically a part of the offense. So use this as a reference. If there's a play on my call sheet you don't like, swap it out with something else. Go into practice mode. Put in something else in there, and you should be good to go. Okay, the next thing is the West Coast offense recruiting. This is the slide or the presentation for the West Coast offense recruiting video. That's what that is for reference in case you need it. All right, the last thing we're going to cover is the bulk of this video, which is the West Coast offense itself. And this is this presentation, USC West Coast offense. We're going to click on that, and let's dive into the offense. All right, let's head into the nitty-gritty of this offense. I want to talk about the playbook first, the formation specifically. When you go into game features from the main menu and go to playbooks, you go to choose playbook and you select the USC playbook. That's the quickest way to get these 9 formations together. And you can switch them around. If you don't like that order, that's up to you. But if you just want the quick way to get to it, just go to that USC playbook and you're good to go. Now, I want to talk about the personnel for each one of these formations. I think this is important. That way you have an idea of maybe which formations you might need to use more often than not, depending on where your talent is at for that particular season. You start off with ace normal. That is a 12 personnel formation, meaning 1 running back and then 2 tight ends. So you take those 2 digits right there, and that's how you get a 12 personnel look. Ace bunch is 10 personnel, ace slot 11, ace wide trips is another 11 personnel set. Ace empty, that is a 4 wide set. It'll look like it's 5 wide, but technically it's got 1 halfback in there by default. Then you got some 21 personnel sets, I formation normal, strong twins, and pro normal. Then you got a much bigger set, I form twin tight end. It just puts an extra tight end in there. And then, of course, at the end you got goal line, which has got some good stuff in there for various situations. Now, notice the theme with this particular playbook. It's all under center. So I just kind of wanted to point that out. There's no shotgun in it, but you're not going to need it. This is one of the things I like about this particular playbook because it's got that true West Coast feel from what you've seen, with the 49ers in the NFL back in the 80s and early 90s and such. Now let's talk about actual plays. I'm going to go in order of what was on that call sheet. We're going to start off with those quick pass plays, the quote-unquote West Coast pass plays. Now, the first play we're going to talk about is ace bunch fade delay. This is ace bunch. You got a trips bunch look on one side with the wide receiver on the left with a running back behind the quarterback. Now, we're going to start off with the man concepts. As you can see, we're on the left hash. This is a left hash play. The man beaters, your progressions are in blue. You got 1, 2, and 3. If you see cover 0, meaning these 2 safeties are coming down, go over the top to this go route. If you do not see that, which it'll end up being cover 1 or cover 2, go to this angle route. As soon as he makes this cut, throw it to him as hard as possible. If he's double teamed or he's just not very good or whatever, you will have a nice little safety valve with this delayed route with this little slot receiver right there. You're not going to pick up a ton of yards, but at least he can bail you out if for whatever reason these 2 aren't opened up. And that's if for the man beaters. Now, when it comes to your zone progressions, there's only 2. If there is a hole above your center, usually due to blitzing or these 2 linebackers spreading out or what have you, go to this slant, stop, whatever you want to call it, this little slant route. He will be open right here. But if there is not a hole there, just dump it off to your halfback to this little stop route. And that's it. Pretty simple play. Next up, we got ace slot quick slants. First off, this is a left hash play, and we're going to talk about our man routes first. We got 2 of them. This is a flag route, but I suggest you hot route this guy to a go. It's just a simpler cover 0 beater. And again, anytime my number 1 read for man is probably going to be a cover 0 beater of some sort. So if you see these 2 safeties come down, just go over the top of that guy, and hopefully you can get a touchdown. Just tap the button to him. But if you do not see that, the entire man progression kind of comes down to this guy right here, your halfback. Just press the button, come over here, just toss it to him. He should be wide open between him and his defender. He should get decent separation. And that's it for the man beaters. Now, when it comes to zone, you only have two of them. If you have a big hole above your center, and this is a theme to these West Coast plays, if you have a hole above the center, go to this slant route right here. The tight end specifically, he tends to get open a little bit easier and quicker right here. But if there is not a hole, just go to your hitch route to your number one receiver over here. So 1 and 2, and then A and B, pretty simple. Next up, we got ace wide trips, curl flats. This is a right hash play. Let's look over the man progressions first. This is another situation where you may want to hot route this post to a go if you see man. It's just a little simpler cover zero beater. That's kind of why I have the number one between the go route and the post. You can leave it as the post. You can hit that against cover zero. But if you're at home and you want something a little bit simpler, you can just hit that go route. So if these safeties come down, go to that post or go. If you do not see that, your next read is going over to the out route over here on the far left. Just throw to him as soon as he makes his cut. And if he's double teamed or what have you, I suggest you look at the angle route next. He can usually get decent separation between him and his defender, just depending. And if he's like really good, I mean, if you got Reggie Bush on your team, you may want to throw to him more often than not. But otherwise, the out route's a little bit safer than the angle. But again, don't forget the angle. It could be very useful. And then you have a fourth man beater, which is this curl route. I doubt you'll ever go to that read, but it's possible. Take a chance on it if you have to. Now, when it comes to your zone reads, there's 3 of them. So we got 7 options here, which is really nice. First of all is this angle route. Again, if there is a hole above your center, go to the angle route, your A. Then you go to the B. If there isn't a hole there, hopefully you'll see cover 2. If you see these 2 safeties spread out, something like this, they'll leave a big hole around through here. That'd be a great time to hit your post route to your tight end. If for whatever reason you do not feel comfortable making that throw, which I get it, it's kind of a tough throw because you kind of have to press the button a lot of the time, or you may have to hold it down depending if it's another different coverage. But if you see some type of hole right there and you feel comfortable throwing to that tight end and he's good enough, throw it to him. Otherwise, your safety valve is your third read. He'll always be open. You may not get much out of it, but your C progression in your zone is the flat route. This is one of the better West Coast plays in the game, and I had to include it. Thankfully, it's part of this playbook. I highly recommend you make this one of your staple West Coast plays. Next up, we got ace empty cross seams. This is, again, from ace empty. You got 2 wide receivers over here, 2 wide receivers over here. Then you got the halfback offset from your right tackle. Now, there are a lot more man beaters than zone beaters. You see all the blue and just a couple of the red, but we'll start with the man beaters. Again, this is left hash play. You got 2 go routes, meaning you got 2 cover zero beaters, which is pretty nice. If you see these 2 safeties come down, go to either one. Go to your best matchup. In this case, I don't know if Reggie Bush is on this safety, that may be the better matchup. Or if this slot receiver is going up against this linebacker who's super slow, you may want to go to him. The only little downside between these 2, they could get kind of close to each other. So kind of be careful of that. You may want to throw a little bit harder than usual. That's just entirely up to you. If you don't see cover 0, I suggest you look at this crossing route. He usually gets decent separation from his defender. Hopefully there's not a lot of congestion right here with other defenders, like if somebody's running a spy of some sort. If that happens, you got a decent third option with this little dig route. Now, when it comes to your zone beaters, there are 2. One, again, over the middle. If you see a hole above your center, quickly throw it to this crossing route coming over. You can get great yardage off of this, again, if there's a big hole after you snap the ball. But if there isn't, you can go to your little hitch, or it's kind of like a screen route from your wide receiver over here on the far left. Now, some people, I did not mention this, or I did not put a C right here, but it is possible this particular go route can work against cover 2. So if you see these 2 safeties going out like this, you may be able to fire it in there with this halfback, but I suggest you practice it. It's very risky. That's why I didn't really put a C right there for your third progression, but it's something to think about. Otherwise, it's a really nifty play, and I like it. Next up, we have another West Coast play from Ace Empty, and that is flat combo. This particular play can work off either hash, but I'm just going to show you the right hash version, and I'll quickly show you the difference between that and the lefty here in a minute. But what you have here is a curl flat concept on either side with like a little curl stop look from the halfback. But again, we are on the right hash, and we're going to treat it as such. Your man beaters, you got several, which is nice. Your first read, I actually suggest you look at this slant right here. For example, there's a good chance, if they're going man, there's a good chance that this linebacker may be covering this wide receiver, and your wide receiver is going to have decent separation out of the gate. If you snap the ball really quick and throw it to this guy really quick, he could get wide open over here, and you can get some decent gains. You can get even more yards if it's this safety that may come down to cover this receiver. Then you can really get some good yardage. It just depends on who you're going up against. Now, if there is a cornerback like this guy right here hovering right over this guy, then I would avoid that altogether. But this is a hot, that's why I put it up here. This is a hot look. Just kind of look to see who's defending him against man and then act accordingly. Beyond that, I would go to one of your curl routes. You got either option. They're both equally good. Now, when it comes to curl routes in this game, they're iffy. It's hit and miss. They're great when you can connect. They're awful when you don't because you can lead to interceptions. But they're fun to throw to if you got a quarterback that can make those throws. If for whatever reason they're double teamed or whatnot, you can go to your last option, which is your halfback. He should be able to get between the ball and his defender. Now, when it comes to zone reads, there's only two of them. Again, the theme with these West Coast plays, we got something over the middle, a good route. If there is a hole there after you snap the ball, just dump it to your halfback. If not, go to your flat route. Now, I mentioned that this can work off the left hash. The only difference is these slant routes flip responsibility. So if we're on the left hash, then this guy would be your hot for man, and this guy would be your short zone beater on the left side. Okay, an amazing concept. This is kind of like as classic of a look of a West Coast play as you can ask for. The next one we're going to look at is I formation normal curls. Very similar to what we just looked at with the flat combo from Ace Empty, except this is from I formation normal. You know, one wide receiver on one side, another receiver on the left, tight end on the right, and you got the I formation look with the fullback and the running back. And first of all, let's look at our progressions. Now, what we could have done, you go back and look at this. You can hot route one of these guys for Ace Empty if need be. Go over the top if you need to cover zero beater. And I want to talk about the same with this. It's kind of the same way. Now, when it comes to our man beaters, I suggest you look at the curls first. Go to one of those. If you feel like you need to cover zero beater, you can honestly hot route anybody to a go, and I think you're going to be fine. I actually suggest you pick like maybe this guy. It's a little bit tougher to go to him if you just try to hit the curl. But again, go to one of the curl routes, go to your best matchup, what have you. And if neither one of them are open for whatever reason, or you got like an amazing tight end and you got a good situation here, a good matchup, then you can go to your tight end there. Again, use a go route, a hot route if needed, if you feel like you need to cover zero beater. Otherwise, your zone beaters, again, you got over the center, above there. If there's a big hole, if these guys separate, blitz, what have you, leaving a big gaping hole, go to your tight end. If not, go to your flat route to your halfback. Here is another West Coast pass play to our offense. I formation normal, tight end drag. This is a right hash play. And we're going to start off with our man progressions. We got 3 of them. Notice it's all short stuff. If you need a hot route somebody to a go route against man, by all means do it. But if you're going to leave it as is, I would start off with this tight end drag. It's pretty good. If you got a speedy tight end, he can get decent separation between him and his defender, which is really nice. I would look to him first. If you don't have a good matchup there, and you got like a really good wide receiver over here on the left, you may want to go to the dig next. But if that's not open or he's double teamed, you can always go to this really deep zig, which takes kind of a while to get open. That's why I kind of put it as the third read. Now, if you're going to look at the zone progressions, there are two of them. Again, we got a center beater. If there's a hole above your center, quickly, again, very quickly go to your tight end. He will get open super quickly. I can't stress that enough. Again, you need to go into practice mode and see how quickly it is when there's a hole right there. But if he's not open, just go to the swing route. As soon as he cuts up the field, I would throw it pretty hard to your halfback on that swing route. Next up, we got strong twins smash halfback streak. Strong twins, you got, your two wide receivers over here, a fullback offset with the tight end. Now, this is a left hash play. We're going to start off with our man beaters. First off, we got a big cover zero beater. This halfback going up the middle. If you see cover zero, if you see these two safeties come down, go over the top to the halfback. If not, just go to your next read, which is number 2, is the out route to the tight end. Very safe. You should get some decent yards out of it. Hopefully the throw is really good and your tight end's fast enough. He can get separation from his defender. If that doesn't work out, you can always go to this wide receiver, this zig, but it's really quick. If he's really good, you got a really good matchup, you may just want to go straight to him. That's kind of up to you how you want to do that, but it's super quick because he doesn't have a whole lot of room to work with, so kind of keep that in mind. When it comes to your zone beaters, again, we got a center beater. If there's a gaping hole right here, quickly throw it to your halfback. You may want to zip it in there. If he's not open, just go over to your zig. He will be open underneath. Just wait till he makes his final cut going to the sideline. I would ignore the flag route. There's really no way to make that work. You could probably, I don't know. There's not a lot of motion involved in this offense, but if you wanted to like hot route this guy to a go and bring him over, you can. But I didn't really want to mention that per se because, again, there's not much motion involved in this offense, so you can ignore this guy altogether. Next up, we got a play from the pro normal formation, and that is wide receiver corners. This is a left hash play, mainly because this is a flat route. These tend to work better towards closer to the sideline. So we got several good beaters here. We'll start off with man. We got 2 corner routes on either side. Go to either one if it's cover 0. If it's cover 1, you can also hit either one, just depending on what that safety does. But if these two safeties come down, go to either one. Go to your best matchup. To be honest, you're probably better off going to this guy over here just because he's got more grass to play with. This throw is a little bit tougher because he's got less room to maneuver. But if you see this safety kind of go like this way, you could go to either one if it's cover 1. Otherwise, if you do not feel safe hitting one of these guys against cover 1, which I suggest you do a press of the button. If it's cover 0, you could probably tap it. Don't throw it super hard. It may get picked off. But if you do not feel safe against cover 1 making one of these throws, I suggest you go to the fullback in this situation. A good flare route. Hopefully this guy, or even this guy is defending him, which would take them forever to catch up with him. It's a very simple press of the button. Just throw it to him. And that is it. Well, we got one more man beater. We got the little in route or a little mini dig to the tight end. Hopefully there's not a lot of congestion. That's why I kind of put that as the third read. Hopefully by the time you have to get to this read, he'll already kind of be right here. And he should be kind of away from everybody, except from his defender, of course. But it's a decent man beater. Now when it comes to your zone beaters, you got 2 of them. Again, if there's a hole above your center, go to your tight end. If there isn't one there, just go to the flat route to your halfback. He should be wide open as a safety valve. This is our last quote-unquote quick play West Coast pass play, and that is pro normal tight end seam. We got a handful of progressions. Let's start off with man. We got a go route with our tight end. If you see both of these safeties come down, go over the top to him. If you do not see that, I suggest you look at this slant route. As long as there isn't a lot of bodies here, sometimes the defense will play like a spy. They'll just have that guy sitting there for whatever reason. If you see any defender just sitting there, I strongly suggest you do not throw it to him. But if there's a bit of an opening right there, by all means go to him. It's a fun route to throw to. But if there's some congestion, I suggest you go to this comeback route. By the time you look at this and there is congestion, this guy should have made his final cut, meaning you can zip it in to that comeback route. Now, when it comes to your zone beaters, I only mentioned two. I'll mention a third one. It's very risky, though. But at the beginning, again, what's the theme of our West Coast plays? The middle of the field. That's our hot, more or less, for the zone. If there is a gaping hole over the middle, go to your slant route. If there isn't one, you can keep it safe and just go to your swing route. As soon as he cuts upfield, just kind of zip it to him. The last one, I did not put a C right here, but if they go cover two, if you see these two safeties spread out like that, you can fire it into your tight end, but be very careful. It's very risky. I'd rather you just not throw an interception, honestly. But if you got a speedy tight end, if you got a quarterback that can really make that throw, go on the practice mode against cover two zone and fool around with that and see if you can make that throw. Otherwise, you got two other decent zone beaters. I think you'll be fine with those two alone. The next group of pass plays we're going to look at are the deep pass plays. You're going to need a handful of them for those longer situations. Even though this West Coast offense is really built off those short passing, you will need a handful of deep pass plays. Thankfully, these formations have some really good ones to use. Let's start off with ace normal tight end crosses. Ace normal, we haven't looked at this formation yet. You have two wide receivers, one on each side, a tight end on each side of the line with a halfback behind the quarterback. Now, we got a lot going on with this particular play. Let's start off with your man beaters. Your first read, you technically got two cover zero beaters. If you see both of these safeties come down, I suggest you go to the go route first. But if you got a better matchup with this wide receiver, you can treat this post route as a cover zero beater. I think you're going to be fine either way. Again, just kind of work off matchup. The only downside to this go route is you don't have a whole lot of room to make this throw. It's very possible your quarterback may throw it out of bounds or whatnot. Just something to think about. If you do not see cover zero, meaning if you just see cover one or cover two or whatnot, go to one of the crossing routes. Now, in my experience, I've noticed this crosser get open more often than this guy. I don't know why. I think it's just the way they rub against with their defenders and such. But I suggest you go to this guy first. Also, by default, this is your number one tight end, which is very helpful. So you may just want to look at him first. But if he's not open for whatever reason, it's possible this crosser may get open as well. So that's four man beaters, which is nice. Now let's talk about our zone beaters. Start off, this actually has a little center beater. Really no different than our West Coast plays we've just talked about. Over the middle, if you see a gaping hole, either one of these tight ends will probably get open. Just go to either one. If you accidentally go to triangle, for example, it's possible this guy may end up catching it because they're right beside each other. It doesn't matter who catches it as long as one of them catches it. So if there's a big hole, go to one of these guys. If not, here is where you can have some real fun going to a deep post route on the backside. If you see these two safeties back out and cover two, especially, you're going to see a big hole right here. If your offensive line can block for you well enough, you can really fire it into this post route. Now, you can see cover three, cover four. He still may get open, but it's still something to keep in mind. Now, your last read for zone is this crossing route right here. He typically works well against cover three. So if you see this one free safety go up the middle, that's probably cover three zone. You may want to go over here. This is one of the plays that you probably need to practice more often than not because it's just very congested in certain areas and it takes certain types of throws to make it work. But once you practice it enough, you got a lot of options here. How many do we have? We got 7 total options technically. Just a really good deep ball play, especially if you need to work on certain passing options like pressing the button, throwing it over defenders and such. Next, we have a slot deep outs. Again, a slot, we have a couple wide receivers on the left, one on the right, a tight end on the right to the line, and then a running back behind the quarterback. Let's talk about our man progressions first. Starting off this post route. If you see cover zero, both of these safeties come down, just go over the top to him. If you want to hot route this guy to a cover zero or to a go route, you can. I don't think you have to. This is a deep or a steep enough of a post route where I think you will be fine. Plus, it's pretty fun to throw to against cover zero. But if you see cover one or you see both safeties back up, go to one of the out routes. I technically suggest you go to this guy first. He's got more grass to play with, so it's an easier throw, but it's a deeper throw. You got to wait for him to make his cut, which takes him a while before he cuts over, but a very fun route to throw to. If for whatever reason he's double teamed or you just got an amazing matchup situation over here, throw it to this wide receiver, but this will kind of act like a comeback route. Since he has so little room to play with, he'll kind of come down a little bit if you really throw it in there. This is a hard press of the button. You actually want to hold it down. So that's another option for man. I suggest you don't. I didn't put it here. You could technically treat the stick route as your fourth man beater, but by then I don't think you'll ever go to him, which is why I didn't put it there. But technically he can get open sometimes. But I suggest not really bother with that. But you really need to pay attention to him when it comes to zone. You got two good zone beaters. One is this stick route. This technically is a little center beater. Yes, he's not technically above the center, but if there's a hole right here, throw it to him. Otherwise, this entire play is kind of built off this post route. If you see these two safeties spread out like that, which is cover two, throw it in this area right here. Sometimes you may have to throw it in a hole right here. If they go cover three, you may have to wait a little bit and throw it over this guy's head. It's something you just have to go into practice mode and see how that route works against various coverages. But in general, you're going to see a hole open right in through here, maybe open right in through there. One of the very fun deep pass plays in the game for sure. I love it. Next, we have a right hash version, kind of sort of what we looked at before, but with a couple different routes. We looked at deep outs. This is a left hash play, but this one is probably going to be your go-to right hash deep pass play. And let's start off with the man progressions. We got several. We got a go route over the top. I suggest you go to that one unless you just don't feel comfortable trying to throw it that tight of a window towards the sideline. If you see both of these safeties come down, just go to him. You could also treat this post route as a cover zero beater. You can technically treat this guy as a cover zero beater too. We got three deep routes, so you may want to go to your best matchup, but technically your simplest go route, cover zero beater, is this guy right here. Your number two route, I suggest you probably look at the post. If you see cover two man, you can hit him pretty hard. Cover one, you may want to stay away from it. It just kind of depends on how deep that safety is. If he's not open, you can go over to your corner route. The only time I suggest you go to him, though, is if it's cover one. You see this safety go up like that. You could probably hit this guy over here with like a press of the button. Your last read against man is a stick route. I don't know if you'll ever go to him. That's why I put it as the fourth read. And sometimes he doesn't get open, but it is a possibility that you can go to him. Now, when it comes to your zone reads, it's really no different than what we looked at in a slot deep outs. It's a post with a stick. So over here, they're on the same side. Starting off, if there's a hole kind of above your center or kind of right here where that A is at, go to your stick. If he is not open, go to your next route, which is your B progression, and it is the post. If you see cover two zone, you see these guys spreading out, you'll see a big gaping hole right here, throw it there. You may see a hole right here where you may have to throw it over this guy's head, just depending on the coverage. But zone, you're going to look at these two guys, and that's all you're really going to need. Next, we have strong twins slot flat post. This is another example of a slot post that's very useful, especially against zone. But we're going to start off with our man progressions first. This is a left hash play. We're going to start off with our cover zero beater. I suggest you use the tight end for that alone. Sometimes this can be good against cover one if you just see one safety go up. But honestly, I would only use this for cover zero purposes, meaning these two safeties come down. You can go over the top, just tap the button to him. If not, your next read is going, technically it's going from right to left. Your number two read against man is this post route. If you see cover two, he should have just an isolation between him and his defender. Cover one, you may want to stay away from it just to be safe. Otherwise, I would suggest you go to your out route over here. It's going to be a pretty safe route. He doesn't have a whole lot of room to work with. He may treat it as a comeback because he's so close to the sideline. But once he makes his cut, just fire it into him if needed. That's why I have this listed as 2 and 2 and not 2 and 3. It just depends on how comfortable you feel with these routes and the coverage. So again, If it's cover 2, you may want to think the post. If it's not, if it's cover 1, you may want to go over here. Or if you just don't feel safe throwing to that post route against cover 2, you may want to go to the out route altogether. It's just entirely up to you. Now, when it comes to your zone beaters, there's only 2. You got your post route over the middle. We don't have a little center beater this time, but this guy can get open a lot of ways. I really love this type of post route. This actually looks different than the other ones. It's actually not as steep. He actually can curl in a little bit more, which I think works even better than most other post routes in the game. But if you see cover 2, he'll definitely be wide open. Sometimes if you see like a linebacker right here or a corner blitzing, he can get wide open right here. But if for whatever reason he's just not open, just dump it off to this delayed route to your halfback. You should be able to pick up a handful of yards from it. One thing I suggest you don't bother with is this tight end on this flare. It's a weird, goofy play or route. He kind of goes up the field once he gets to this point. If it was a true flare route, I would use that more, but it's not. It's just a bad route. I would just avoid it altogether. Now let's look at play action. There are 2 play action plays I'm going to give you. Play action wasn't used a ton in the West Coast offense, so I'm going to treat it as such. Now the first one we're going to look at is ace normal PA rollout. And this is a great play to attack various coverages, and you really got to read some things at certain times of the play. But let's start off with our man progressions. First of all, we got a cover 0 beater over the top, your number 1, your go route. If you see both of these safeties come down, just go over the top to that wide receiver. Now, he's kind of hugging the sideline. Your quarterback may accidentally throw it out of bounds. If you need to, you can motion the wide receiver to the left just a little, and that can give him more space. But that's just something you can test out in practice mode. If you see cover 1 or cover 2, especially cover 2, these 2 safeties spread out, you may want to just go over to your crosser, just fire it into him. I love that route against man. But if you don't feel comfortable with that throw, or you see a safety kind of hovering around that receiver, just dump it off to your delay route, to your tight end down below, and you can pick up a handful of yards. Now, I did not mention this tight end that's doing like a slant route or a crosser per se. It's very congested right around through here against man, and I can never seem to get him open, so I just ignore him altogether against man. Now, when it comes to zone, this is where it gets really fun. Your first route, your progression against zone is this go route, specifically where I have the A listed right here. If you see cover 2, that's why I put it right here. If you see cover 2 zone, these 2 safeties spread out like that, while you're going in play action, look for that cover 2 spread. Once you are able to throw it, fire it into this guy at this part right here. You can get a huge chunk play out of it if the throw is good enough. Now, if you see cover 3 or 4, cover 3 meaning this safety going straight back, or cover 4, both of them going straight back, then you can look over to this crosser. He can technically get open against cover 2, 3, and 4. Especially against cover 2, there's a gaping hole right there. A very fun throw to make. But if you don't feel safe making that throw, just dump it down to your tight end, which is going to be your safety valve. The other play action I want to cover is I formation normal PA boot. Technically not much different than what we just saw from ace normal PA rollout. We'll start off with our man progressions. Again, you got a cover 0 beater with this go route. If you see both safeties come down, meaning that's cover 0, just go over the top to him. He is hugging the sideline. If you don't feel comfortable making that throw, just in terms of the quarterback maybe throwing it out of bounds, you may want to motion him over just a little bit and then snap the ball, which gives him a little more room to work with. But if you see cover 1 or cover 2, either one of these safeties backing up, try out this crosser here. This one's a little shorter than the other crosser we looked at from ace normal PA rollout. This is technically more safe of a man beater because of that. It'll be harder for those safeties to come down to defend him. But if for whatever reason he's double teamed, or if you don't feel comfortable making that throw, you can dump it off to your fullback and he can pick up maybe a couple of yards. Now, when it comes to zone, it's very similar to what we just talked about with the previous play. If you see cover 2 zone, meaning these 2 safeties splitting out while you're doing your play action, look for that hole right there, especially if that safety spreading out. Fire it into this guy right here as soon as you're able to. If not, I suggest you look at this tight end. This is a flag route. This is honestly against cover 4. It tends to work best. This is a play you really need to practice. But that's why I put cover 4. Cover 4 meaning these corners are going back, these two safeties are going straight back. But for whatever reason, it works really great against cover 4, so something to think about. But if you don't feel comfortable making that throw, just bounce it down to your fullback. He can pick up a handful of yards underneath. Now let's get into the handful of run concepts of this offense. Let's start off with a dive. Now, dive is your most basic run concept in the game. As you can see up here in the top right, it's meant to go between the center and the guard, as you see right here. Now, the first play we're going to talk about is ace normal halfback dive. And again, you can flip this play. You can flip it, hit triangle left or right if you need to go to this side or the other. But against a man, if there's a hole there or here or wherever, just go right through it. But there's a chance you probably are not going to see that. It's probably going to get bunched up. If needed, you can always bounce it to the outside. Again, if you're going to flip the run, you do the same thing on the other side. Now, against zone, the way the defense works is these guys are going to kind of sit in their spot, meaning, like, for example, these guys may spread out a little bit, but they're just going to kind of hover. If you're going to go up against zone, try to run between these defenders and then run for daylight after that. Now, when it comes to all run plays, be very careful. Don't use the speed button when you're around through here. Use the speed button only when there's nothing in front of you. Okay, so dive, again, it's just very simple. You're just meant to cut up the field. Now, one thing you need to think about with dive in general, how strong are your guards? If you got really good guards and a good center and you're going up against a weak defensive tackle and a linebacker, run more dive. Or if you're going up against a 3-4, this is a 4-3. If it's a 3-4, meaning you got 4 linebackers with only 3 defensive linemen, you may want to think about running more dive as well, just because there's just less defensive linemen to play with. This is one from Ace Bunch. No different. You see up here, we got a couple guys blocking, kind of like a slant block with these 2 wide receivers. But again, a dive is a dive is a dive. Treat it as such. You can flip it, go off either hash. If it's man, try to find a hole. If not, just bounce to the outside. And if it's zone, try to go in between defenders if possible before you break to daylight. Next up, we got halfback dive from Ace Slot. Really no different, except you got a slot receiver kind of backing off. This is why you see this linebacker kind of shifting over to this wide receiver. You may want to think about, and for this example, flipping your run to the left. That way you kind of bit of a hole right there, especially if you're going up against zone. Again, it's just up to you, and it just depends on how good the blocking is. But again, same dive principles. Flip the run if need be, and cut up or around depending on what you see and how the blocking goes. Next up, ace wide trips, halfback dive, no different than slot. Except we got your slot receiver over on the right side. Sometimes it'll force a linebacker over, or if it's a nick or a cornerback, he'll come right over. It just depends. Like for this example, I would probably run to the right just because there's a hole right here. I don't care if it's man or zone, but the same rules apply. Same with I form, normal, halfback, ISO. This is still dive. You just got a fullback. That's why they call it ISO. But again, you can flip the run left or right, and the same rules apply. Man, zone, just cut up the middle if you can. It's great. It's a fun play if you can run between the tackles or the guards. But if there's nothing between here, just bounce to the outside if man. You may even have to do that with zone, but especially with zone, just go between your tackles. The same with this play. Now, this is a fullback dive, but it's from that same formation, I formation normal, but it's treated no differently than if the halfback was running it. By default, it's meant to go to the left, but you can flip it. If it's man, try to find a hole if you can, get through it. If not, bounce to the outside. And if it's zone, just try to go in between defenders as best as you can. Next, we got I formation, twin tight end, halfback ISO, no different than the one from I normal, except you got a tight end coming in. Same rules apply. Next up, we got I formation, twin tight end, fullback dive. Again, you can flip it either way, but the same rules apply. Next up, we got halfback dive from strong twins. Now, I think this is the only dive in this playbook that does not let you flip it. So I think you're forced to go to the right. Something to keep in mind there, but the same rules still apply. Just find a crease up the middle if you can, bounce to the outside if not, and go between defenders if possible. Next, we got fullback blast. This is quote-unquote your fullback dive play from strong twins. Same rules apply. You cannot flip this, but sometimes he can get really wide open. So if you got a decent fullback that can cut up the middle and can run a little bit, by all means, use that. Or if you're using like the twin halfback look, just depending on your personnel, you may want to use this play more often than not. Again, same rules apply. Last but not least, we got pro normal fullback blast. Same thing, it just goes to your fullback, and if you use formation subs or sub packages, you can switch these guys around. But again, it's a straight dive. You cannot flip it. Got to keep that in mind. But again, the same rules apply for all of these dives and blasts and ISOs. Next, we're going to look at the slam run concept. This is probably my favorite run concept in the game because it's got a little bit more diversity than the dive. Now, the dive is really meant to go in between the tackles 80% of the time, but this slam, it allows you to cut in and cut out. Now, by default, you see up here for ace normal, this is the first play we're going to cover with slam is ace normal halfback slam. You notice here the diagram says it's going between the guard and the center, but by default, it's kind of meant to go between the guard and the tackle. So kind of keep that in mind throughout as we look at the rest of these slam plays. But you can flip it. You can go left or right, just depending on, what the defense looks like and such. But I suggest you kind of try to go between the guard and the tackle if there's a hole. But the same rules technically apply to slam as they do with dive. Exact same thing. If there's a hole there, awesome, go through. But if not, you may need to bounce it to the outside, which is a little bit easier to do so with slam. But if it's zone, again, you may have to cut it out if needed. But if there's a hole there, just try to run between defenders. And again, don't abuse the speed button. Next, we got ace bunch halfback slam. Exact same thing, just a different formation. All the same rules apply to it. Then you got ace slot halfback slam. Again, exact same thing. Just go between the tackles, bounce to the outside, just read your blocks. And again, you can flip it. Then you got ace wide trips. This one's called halfback sting. There is no technical halfback slam in this formation, but halfback sting pretty much works the same. It's just a tad bit slower than slam. Now, this is truly meant to go between the guard and the tackle, but if you need to, you can always bounce to the outside. You can flip it if need be, but it's the same rules that apply both the dive and the slam. Next up, we got I formation normal halfback slam. No different, same rules apply. You just got different personnel in there, and of course, you can flip it. Then you got I formation twin tight end halfback slam. Again, different formation, but everything stays the same. Then you got strong twins halfback slam. This one you can flip, which is nice. Now, for this one thing you may do, and again, I've talked about this a couple of times, you may not want to do much motion at all. I've kind of done that on purpose, just kind of keep things simple. But you can motion this fullback over if you're going to run to the left, if you need an extra blocker, especially against zone. That gives you an extra guy to block for you, but you don't have to do that. But again, you can flip it. All the rules apply one way or the other. Now, this particular image, it shows this corner over here. They're playing man defense. So, for example, you may want to go to the right side more just because there's more grass to play with. Again, it's just up to you and how that defense is lined up. Now let's talk about the draw concept. The draw is no different than dive, except once you snap the ball, it looks like you're going out the pass, but he's going to hand the ball off to your halfback. But all the draws that I'm going to show you have the exact same rules that apply to ISO and to slam. But I think the draw works really well with all of your West Coast pass plays because you're going to be dropping back some. So when you snap the ball, it's going to zoom out really quick, and then it's going to give it to your halfback. But again, you can flip these runs and just use your same rules. Man, try to find a hole if you can. If not, bounce to the outside, zone, run between defenders if possible, but bounce it outside if you need to as well. But this is ace normal, halfback draw. Then you got ace bunch, halfback draw. Then you have ace slot, halfback draw. Again, exact same thing, nothing different, just the formation changes. Same with ace wide trips, halfback draw. Then you got pro normal, halfback draw. This one you cannot flip. It forces you to go pretty much around this area. You can't go that way or that way. In order to do that, you're going to have to manually control the halfback and push them one way or the other. But again, the same rules apply. The last run concept we're going to cover in this offense is the option toss. Now, the option toss, we're going to use the halfback option concept because the regular toss play in this game by default doesn't work all that well, but this is a great alternative. And the way this is going to work is the first play we're going to look at is one from ace normal, which is called halfback option. And you can flip this play left or right, just depending on how the defense lines up and if you need more grass to work with and such. But the way this works is this quarterback is going to do like a 3/4 turn and then go out to do the option. Now, this is a West Coast offense. We are not running option here. We're going to toss the ball. So what's going to happen is once he makes his 3/4 turn, once he gets right here, that's when I suggest you just go ahead and toss it to the halfback. And then from there, you're just going to outrun defenders. You're going to try to go between defenders if it's zone. But against man, you're going to run away from them. And that's kind of it, really. It's going to make a lot more sense when you watch the game film. But as soon as he makes that quarter turn, just go ahead and pitch it to your halfback, and you're off to the races. Now, you got ace bunch, weak toss. This is the only true toss play in this offense because there isn't an option play in this formation. But this weak toss is actually kind of decent only because none of the players are pulling. So this one kind of works okay. Now, by default, it goes to the left. You can flip it. Just hit triangle right, triangle left, just depending on which side you want to go to. But all the rules apply once the running back gets the ball. Run away defenders against man. Run between defenders against zone. Now we're going to head back into our normal option. Now, this is a slot option strong. The name is different, but the same concept. Your quarterback's going to do his 3/4 turn, and then I suggest you just pitch it kind of once he does that, kind of once he gets by the tackle. After that, you just kind of do your thing with your halfback, and of course, you can flip the run if needed. Ace wide trips, option strong. No different, same rules apply. Then you got I normal. It's called power option. The only reason why it's called power option is because it's got a fullback to help you block as well. But again, same rules apply. You can flip it and do your normal thing like you would with the other quote-unquote option toss plays. Then you got the same one from I formation, twin tight end. Exact same thing. You should be able to flip it and do your normal thing with this concept. Then you got strong twins power option. No different. One thing you may want to think about, if you're going to flip this play, go triangle left. If you're going to go that route, you may want to bring over the fullback, motion him over as well. Just something to think about. I suggest you go into practice mode and test that out. Otherwise, all the same rules apply. And last but not least, this is the last power option, quote-unquote, option toss in our offense, and that is from Pro Normal power option. It only works with the halfback. So this is interesting. You can flip this play, and what's weird is your halfback is still the one going out this direction, but your fullback kind of gets in the way. So if you're going to flip this play, you may want to motion the fullback to the left, which kind of brings him down beside the left tackle, and then run your play. But if you're going to go to the right, treat it like normal. Again, exact same concept. Treat it accordingly. Man, run away from defenders. Zone, trying to run between them if possible. But always pitch it right after you make that corner turn because, again, your quarterbacks will be super slow. He's probably not going to be able to run well anyways. Just treat it like a normal toss. And that is it for this video. I just want to quickly talk about your call sheet, how important it is. I went through all of these in order. Just go back through this video, use this as a guide, and just take in and out whatever you need. You may not have to cut anything out, but hopefully this video will give you a really good breakdown of how I would use this particular playbook using these specific plays and concepts. All right, guys, I'll talk to you later.